Now RDBMS will delay the write to this extent until relocation is completed, though chances are small that the RDBMS is writing to the extent which is getting relocated at the same time. Now ASM will do the actual relocation. And at this time, if any RDBMS instance wants to read that extent, they can read from the old location also. But if write request comes, then they need to wait till relocation is completed. Once relocation is done, ASM will release the old AU extents to free pool. Explain how ASM crash recovery happens? ASM crash recovery is similar to that of database instance crash recovery. Two virtual metadata directories are responsible for crash recovery. Active Change Directory, ACD, which is like redo in database. Continuous Change Directory, COD, which is like undo in database. When we ASM crash recovery means it is ASM disk group recovery. During recovery. What is Flex ASM? With Oracle Flex ASM, the clients can connect to remote ASM using network connection, i.e. ASM network. If a server running an ASM instance fails, Oracle Clusterware will start a new ASM instance on a different server to maintain the cardinality. If a 12C database instance is using a particular ASM instance, and that instance is lost because of a server crash or ASM instance failure, then the Oracle 12C database instance will reconnect to an existing ASM instance on another node. These features are collectively called Oracle Flex ASM. What is ASM striping? Oracle ASM separate files into stripes and spread them across all the disks of a disk group. Why striping? To balance load across disks. To reduce I/O latency. Two types of striping in ASM. Coarse-grained. In coarse-grain, the stripe size is same as AU of ASM disk group, I.1 MB default. It is helpful for voluminous I/O. It manages load across disks. Data file, redo log file, temp files are coarse-grained. Fine-grained. The stripe size is 12 kilobytes. Helpful for low latency activities. Useful for files of small size with small I/O. Only control file is fine-grained currently as control file size is small and it can be speed across disks. Why control_file is fine-grained? Suppose we need disks of 1 terabyte each to an existing disk group. Should I add them one by one or add all the disk at a time? Which method will create less overhead? It is a best practice to add and drop multiple disks at a time so that ASM can reorganize partnership information within ASM metadata more efficiently. What is the benefit of using ASMlib? It simplifies ASM disk administration. ASMlib efficiently handles file descriptors and thus reduces the number of open file descriptors on the system, making it less likely to run out of global file descriptors. Also, the open and close operations are reduced, ensuring orderly cleanup of file descriptors when the storage configuration changes. What is fast rebalance feature of Oracle 11G ASM? Usually, when we add or drop disks to a disk group, rebalance is initiated and communication started between all the active ASM instances. And if rebalance operation is big one, then these messassing between the ASM instances can cause a delay. So in a situation where user don't need to access the disk group, then we can use this fast rebalance feature. Means rebalance will be performed by only one ASM instance. Note, the ASM disk group will be accessible to Oracle database during this phase. Steps for fast rebalance in 2-node RAC. Dismount the disk group from all the ASM nodes. Mount the disk group only one node ASM instance with restrict, alter disk group data mount restrict. Do storage activites like add/drop disk, this will start the rebalance. Once rebalance is completed, dismount the disk group from that one node. And mount the disk group on all nodes of cluster. What is ASM proxy? With introduction of Flex ASM in Oracle 12c, hard dependency between ASM and its clients has been relaxed to i.e. all the nodes in a cluster no need have active ASM instance. In such a scenario, in order to make ACFS services available on nodes without an ASM instance, a new instance type has been introduced by Flex ASM. The ASM proxy instance, which works on behalf of a real ASM instance. ASM proxy instance fetches the metadata about ACFS volumes and file systems from an ASM instance and caches it. If ASM instance is not available locally, ASM proxy instance connects to other ASM instances over the network to fetch the metadata. Additionally, if the local ASM instance fails, then ASM proxy instance can failover to another surviving ASM instance on a different server, resulting in uninterrupted availability of shared storage and ACFS file systems. How can we check whether Flex ASM is enabled or not? Also, if I have node RAC, and I want to keep 3 ASM instans in any of the 3 nodes out of, how I will do it? ASM CMD show cluster mode. ASM cluster, flex mode enabled. Rooted based bin, #/srvctl modify ASM count 3. Rooted based bin, #/srvctl config ASM. ASM home /crsap/app/oracle/grid/1c_home. Password file, plus data /perm file /orop_asm. ASM listener. ASM instance count, 3. Cluster ASM listener, asnet1 lsnr_ASM. How Flex ASM works. With Oracle Flex ASM, the clients can connect to remote ASM using network connection, i.e. ASM network. If a server running an ASM instance fails, Oracle Clusterware will start a new ASM instance on a different server to maintain the cardinality. If a 12C database instance is using a particular ASM instance, and that instance is lost because of a server crash or ASM instance failure, then the Oracle 12C database instance will reconnect to an existing ASM instance on another node. These features are collectively called Oracle Flex ASM. Flex ASM requires a separate listener called ASM listener to be configured on a different port number which is not being used by any other listener. The other important thing is that Flex ASM requires a separate network with which the ASM instances and its clients communicate. You can also make use of the private network Ethernet, used for internode communication, as the network for the ASM instances and its clients to communicate. How can we convert standard ASM to Flex ASM? Oracle $ASMques silent convert to Flex ASM networks F1/12.1.1. ASM listener port 12. Root #SRVCTL config ASM. We can change the ASM cardinality I.E if we have 3 node RAC and we want ASM to run on 2 node RAC, then Oracle $SRVCTL modify ASM count. Alternatively, we can use the GUI method I.E using ASMCA utility. Suppose this file location inside the GPNP profile is missing, will the ASM start during cluster startup? When an Oracle ASM instance searches for an initialization parameter file, the search order is the location of the initialization parameter file specified in the grid plug and play GPNP profile. If the location has not been set in the GPNP profile, then the search order changes to file or file in the Oracle ASM instance home. For example, this file for Oracle ASM has the following default path in the Oracle Grid infrastructure home in a Linux environment $grid_home/dbs/file plus asm.ora. Note: Filer's file is required if your configuration uses non-default initialization parameters for the Oracle ASM instance. What are the different phases of disk group rebalance? Planning. File extents relocation. Disk compacting.